You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K24. Myself, Mamuti, alongside me, as usual, Mr. BJ Armstrong. BJ, we missed you yesterday. How's the city of Chicago treating you?
Oh,
Nice
it's
to be back.
beautiful, 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 Mo. It's good. It's all good. I got all types of things in my ears. It's good, Mo. It's good. I'm just, doing my Chicago thing and pre-draft and getting ready so that you'll have new stars and new people to break down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't know if anyone will in my class will get to the Celtics. Hopefully they won't. But
No, the
it's
Celtics don't
good.
have that pick. They traded, I think, what's become the 14th pick for in the Drew Holiday trade.
Yes.
So
So
no pick for the Celtics here. But we're going to talk about that draft lottery later on in the show. We'll break down tonight's games. The Celtics game 4 versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've now taken a 3-1 series lead with the 109-102 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. No Donovan Mitchell, but it's the typical Boston Celtics who like to make life difficult for themselves. What I will say about this, Jason Tatum once again, 33 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I think it's an identical stat line to game 3. Um, but yeah, this game should have been a blowout. It should have been over by halftime. You should have rested your guys. Instead, Celtics turning the ball over a lot in the first half. They finished with 14 turnovers in this game. Down the stretch, late game offense. I'm not even going to talk about it because it would just stress me out, BJ. But what I will say is the Celtics now have a 3-1 series lead, one win away from the conference finals. They're an NBA best 7-2 this postseason, and 6 of those wins have been by at least 13 points. And I'm just not going to talk about the things that worry me because we are not going to worry about them until we need to. The big news from this game, though, was off the court. Just on the sidelines,
oh,
one Mr.
oh,
LeBron James was in the house.
oh,
Yeah, yeah,
oh.
yeah.
So, hey, should we
Are we gonna
go
go there?
into our favorite subject?
Ice
Uh,
Spice.
no,
Oh, the
I didn't.
other favorite subject.
I didn't see her at the game. But we should go into our other favorite subject matters that we love to discuss here.
Well, the last
Sure.
time LeBron James was in
So,
Cleveland watching a game was Zydrunas Ilgauskas' jersey retirement, and 6 months later
okay.
he rejoined the Cavs. The last time LeBron James went to watch another team play, it was the Lakers in the summer league, and then he went to join the Lakers. So, if this is a sign of how things are, he took his wife Savannah. They were both at the game together. Um, in typical LeBron fashion, he had a bottle of wine with him on the court.
No,
He had a bottle of wine, a
no,
bottle of water, and a cup of coffee. He had one for
no.
hydration, one for energy, and one just for fun.
Oh,
Maybe he's got it all figured out. But yeah, I think they looked at it and Donovan Mitchell didn't play, and it was in my head, LeBron's just looking at which of the guys on the Cavs he wants to trade when he goes there. And I think like this whole thing of Donovan Mitchell wants to leave the Cavs. I think if LeBron joins, he'll want to stay. So LeBron said to Donovan Mitchell, "Don't play tonight. Let me see what we're working with these other guys." And they're going to end up trading Darius Garland for LeBron James. And, LA get a younger guard that they can pair with AD, have a nice big and guard combo, and someone who's going to be there for the long term. And Cleveland get the homecoming, LeBron James. What do you think about that?
I'm not gonna think about it. I'm not gonna go down this dark rabbit hole. I'm gonna stay with the game. Great win by your Celtics. But if you want to discuss it and you want to talk about it, be my guest.
Well, what I want to talk about really and truly deep down is why we're still playing Al Horford and Xavier Tillman's getting a DNP in a game where clearly Al Horford needs the rest. And, you traded for this guy, Xavier Tillman, for his defense, and you're not playing him, Joe Mazzulla. We'll have words in the next round, don't worry. But yeah, LeBron, Cleveland, I think it's making a lot of sense. I don't know what they'll do about their front court situation because obviously LeBron's not really going to play the three at this stage. So they might look to move Allen because I don't think Mobley will be a player that they move, especially with the way that he's been playing in the postseason. He finished with 19 points tonight. Darius Garland increasing his trade stock for LeBron, 30 points and 7 assists. And a huge shot from Jaylen Brown down the stretch. He finished with 27 points, 8 rebounds, and he hit a huge
Okay, so if
three.
you are the Lakers, who would you rather want? Would you rather have
I'd rather have Donovan Mitchell.
there and who?
I'd rather have Donovan Mitchell than Darius Garland if I'm either of the teams.
Well, you got to do something else to add up the numbers, right? So you got to get a who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. Who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. Who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. Who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. Who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. Who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. Who would you have to get? You'd have to get a. But you probably had to give up Mobley then.
Well, it would have to be Garland and Mobley for LeBron James.
Or Donovan Mitchell and Mobley.
No, that would be crazy. If I'm giving you Donovan Mitchell, it has to be a straight up swap. LeBron James is 40 years old. What are we doing here? You're asking me to give up my best player and my best young player
Okay,
for a
okay.
guy who's going to play two
Let
seasons
me
with
ask you
me.
this. Let me ask you this. Okay, if I were the Cavs,
Yes.
and I'm the books in front of me, I want to get I don't want to worry about players leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So Donovan Mitchell, he's a free agent, right? If I remember correctly. What's his
Donovan Mitchell right now has 2 years left on his contract after this one, but the final year is a player option. So next year is the final guaranteed year of his contract.
yeah. I would if he
Darius
doesn't
Garland is
if he
signed until
doesn't if he
2028.
doesn't resign, I would move Donovan Mitchell.
Yes.
If he says, well, I would kind of want to wait and see, that puts Cleveland in a very awkward position. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Well, I'd say to
And
Donovan Mitchell, sign this extension and we'll trade for LeBron.
yeah.
That's what I'd say to him. And if you don't want to do this, then we'll trade you.
Yeah,
See ya.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I would do. I mean, yeah, if you don't want to sign, then because it puts Cleveland in a very because if they trade for Garland and then Donovan leaves, now you're in a full rebuild. So I think it's one or the other.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of
I'm
sense.
just looking at the numbers. I mean, I agree with you, basketball, but and I would if you're gonna take on that massive big of a contract, right? If you're gonna take that on, you're gonna have to get away some salary because you don't want to be in second
Luxury
aprons
tax.
and
Yep.
luxury tax and all that stuff. So
Yep.
it makes sense. So I think they would get off of Mobley. They would get off of Mobley because
Because his
Jaren Allen,
extension's not kicked in yet.
his extension hasn't kicked in yet. Exactly. That's exactly right. That makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, but now whether or not you do it or whatever, we're just talking.
We're
But it
just
makes
talking.
sense.
Yeah, we'll talk about a few off-season things in a sec, but we got to talk about the OKC Thunder tying the series 2-2 in Dallas. They've regained their home court advantage as Shai Alexander put on an MVP type performance down the stretch in this game. In this game, the Dallas Mavericks led for pretty much the entirety of it. And it was a late push at, the last couple minutes of the quarter where Shai Alexander, he scored or assisted on 7 of the last 8 made field goals for the Thunder, including 8 straight OKC points to eventually take and keep the lead. This one went right down to the wire. And Luka Doncic had the chance to tie the game from the free throw line. And it was very shocking that he actually missed the first of his free throws and then didn't intentionally miss the second one. And that was the game. The Mavericks really locked in defensively. For the most part of this game, I was so impressed by the defense of the Dallas Mavericks. Their role players really stepped up in this one. You've got Jones Jr. with 17 points, PJ Washington with 21 and 12. Daniel Gafford gave you 10. Derek Lively gave you 7-6 off the bench. And Tim Hardaway gave you 6. Exum gave you 5. Josh Green gave you 3. So just little contributions here and there. But Kyrie Irving, in 40 minutes of play, 9 points and 9 assists. He was 4 of 11 from the field. And Luka Doncic, 6 of 20 from the field. But the free throw line was the real low light for the Mavs. They were 12 of 23, shooting just 50% from the free throw line. And, if you're going to give up 11 free points in a game that you lose by 4 points, you deserve to lose. For the OKC Thunder, Shai Alexander stepped up 34 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Lou Dort had 17, including a huge 3 at the end. Jalen Williams had 14. Chet Holmgren had 18 and 9. Josh Giddey once again stunk up the place with 5 points in 12 minutes, and I don't know when they're going to finally stop playing him. It's interesting that Mark Dagnall won the Coach of the Year for the regular season, and he's still coaching like it's the regular season, going 10 deep into his rotation. They might want to have a look at that because they were lucky to win this one tonight. And if the Mavericks make some free throws, they do not win this game. They're down 3-1. But I guess we'll never know what that's like. So it's now a best of three series. And I want to credit the OKC Thunder because, they're a very young team. This is their first go at it. But they showed some serious poise down the stretch tonight, including
Yes.
leading the Mavericks to a stretch where they could not score the basket late in the game.
Yes.
So, credit to them because there were long stretches where the OKC offense went stagnant and they were going to just isolation stuff. There wasn't a lot of ball and player movement. Um, the thing with Kyrie struggling is he did a great job early on. Every time they show him the double team, he's just moving the ball instantly and finding his teammates. But having said that, when it's late in the game and Luka's having an awful game, you expect your second star to step up like he has been doing all playoffs long. It's just a shame for the Mavs that Kyrie couldn't do this tonight. So we now move on back to Oklahoma for game 5 in what will be a best of 3 series. All the series except for the Boston one are now tied at 2 games apiece, which makes for some exciting viewing. But BJ, you weren't here yesterday. And if you guys heard yesterday's show, at the very end, I said, I guarantee BJ calls me as soon as I'm done recording.
And what did I do?
Within 90 seconds of me finishing that recording, BJ calls me. He says, I just got back. I'm ready. I said, BJ, it's 5:30 in the morning. I'm going to sleep. And then we proceeded to talk about basketball for about an hour on the phone. So we should have just recorded the phone call.
Well, that's what we do. That's what we do. No, I want to say this about Shea Alexander. There's been some in the media here about the MVP and he finished second. I mean, there's only one more place for him to go.
All the way up.
All this, without question, he had an MVP caliber season, and the last 2 years, I mean, he had a breakout season by statistically, I would say. What he did, he was a first team All NBA player, and then this year he follows it up, and they have his team has a phenomenal season. But the thing that's been very impressive about his season is he's playing Luka. Like he's matching Luka and Kyrie.
He was the best player on the floor tonight.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He in both games that they've won, he's been the best player on the floor.
Well, that's what we say about the playoffs. The
yes,
team with the best players is going to win.
And when you want to find out who's who and what's what, I want to say this about Shea. And look, I haven't, I want to say this about this young man. I've been watching him now for 2-3 years. And you think players are going to get there. They show you, they'll have a season, they'll show you. He is without question a bona fide superstar.
Mm-hmm.
He's a superstar. And now he is displaying this in a way where he is able to just take over a game and just win a game like he did tonight on the road, I might add, versus, Kyrie is without question a terrific, terrific talent. He's without question, I think, a top 15 player here, just to be conservative, wherever you want to rank it.
Mm-hmm.
And Luka is a top 5 player. And Shea is there. He's there. And so from this point moving forward now, he's in that conversation. Okay. He's put together a season where arguably he could have been the MVP this year and taken nothing away from anyone. Because I thought Jokic, because he's coming back with the expectations. But from this point moving forward now, based on what I'm seeing, Shea is there now.
Yeah.
And he deserves now to let everyone know, because he's in a smaller market and we haven't seen him on national television as much as probably some of the other players. But ladies and gentlemen, he is without question an elite player in your top 5. Mm-hmm. And I remember I said that about the kid Anthony Edwards, right? I know it sounded a little, but Shea Alexander is there now. And he's going to be there for a while. This is not an accident. So just want to say I'm really excited for these next 3 games, Mo. And I'm excited to see who's going to take that step, right? I mean, this is going to be a tough, I don't know. I think it's a toss-up who's going to win it.
Well, I think this was really bad for the Mavericks to lose this game.
Right.
They played sensational defense. They held the Thunder to 25% three-point shooting, right? Luka Doncic in this one had 7 turnovers and only 6 made baskets. All he had to do, because we always say that your role players are going to win you one game in a series if you want to win a series. This was the game for the role players to win. All Luka had to do was make those free throws down the stretch,
Right.
would have tied the game, and we play from there, right? I don't know. This game may end up costing the Mavericks this series because they would have been three
Yeah,
one up,
I
going
yeah,
with all the
I agree.
confidence because they absolutely had the Thunder in a chokehold. Like there were stretches of this game where the Thunder looked like the young team who weren't ready for the moment, so on and so forth. But yet Shai Gilgeous-Alexander stepped up late in the game, and that's what superstars do. Um, and obviously with Luca, he started the game looking like he wasn't the injury wasn't bothering him. He looked like he had a spring in his step, and as the game wore on, you could see it really starting to affect him.
Hmm.
But let me go back to what I was saying before. Anyway, BJ, you weren't on yesterday's show, so you missed out on the chance to talk about the NBA draft lottery. So I thought I'd wait for you to join us here.
Okay.
I want to know, what are your thoughts? The Atlanta Hawks, who had a 3% chance at the number one pick, ended up with the number one pick for the first time in 49 years. I don't think they've ever won the lottery before. The Washington Wizards have got the second pick. The Houston Rockets, they own the Nets picks, so they end up with the third pick overall. The San Antonio Spurs, looking to add some help around Victor Wembanyama, they get the fourth pick. And your Detroit Pistons, for the second year running, after having the worst season in the NBA, end up with the fifth pick. And so on and so forth. What were your thoughts about the draft lottery, and who are you really excited to see what they do with their pick?
I would. It's been kind of fascinating being here because normally when you get the number one pick, everyone's like, this player, this franchise player, we're getting this superstar, and there's so much positive, vibes that you have, right? There's optimism in the air. It's been really odd because it's kind of one of these things where everyone's like, it reminds me, remember the draft of Anthony Bennett when he ended up
Yep.
going number
Yep.
one? Remember that draft?
Hmm.
Every now and then you'll see a draft and then it's like, well, who's number one?
Yep.
Like,
Yep. And it's
you
horrible to have the first round pick, the number one pick in that
pick
draft, because
because
you're
you
more than likely going to be
don't
wrong.
and that's what it feels like. Now, I don't want to have that with these young people. I happen to think there's some really, really good players in this draft. In scouting, it's always great players. I always think there's all-star players everywhere. You just got to find them. However, there isn't a consensus top player,
Mhm.
but there are going to be some really good players. And when I mean really good player, the best player in the draft could be in the middle of this draft, right? I mean, you can get a Jokic in the second round. So we know that this draft will have great players in there. It's just there isn't that one player that's just saying, okay, I don't think there's a such thing as a can't miss, but highly unlikely, you want to say, anything can happen, but Wembanyama was the best player in the draft, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not that.
No.
There's not that star power that we can all point to. So we'll see. We'll
If
see what the
they did
Atlanta
say
Hawks are
this
going to do.
about that Anthony Bennett draft ended up producing Giannis.
Yeah, that's what
So
I'm saying. There's going to be no.
it's
There's
less
good
about the
players.
media hype, and it's like, who are you really scouting? Which teams? This is the kind of draft where you find out which teams are really good at scouting, because they can't
Yes.
just pick what they're supposed to pick because the
Right.
GM doesn't want to get fired and he's just going to pick the player that everyone expects them to. We're going to see who's really good at scouting in this. So I think, looking at the results from last night, obviously the Pistons were disappointed to only get the fifth pick. They wanted to get more than that, but it may play in their favor. The player that they want may still be available at five. The Spurs have got 2 picks in the lottery now. They have the eighth pick and the fourth pick, which is huge for them. They
Mm-hmm,
could package
mm-hmm.
those picks to move up if there's a player they really want, or they could use those picks to trade, and they could just use those picks to get 2 young players to develop alongside Victor Wembanyama. The Charlotte Hornets ended up with the sixth overall pick, and it just seems Charlotte Hornets, right? But the real winner from last night, in my opinion, is the Houston Rockets, because they're a team who could have made the playoffs this year. They're going to be challenging for the playoffs next year, and they've ended up with a third overall pick, which becomes a very valuable trade asset because they were offering the Brooklyn Nets their picks back earlier this season in exchange for Mikal Bridges, and Brooklyn said no. Given that the Rockets now have a third pick, that holds a lot more value than a mystery placed pick. You know what I mean? Like a top 3 pick holds more
Right.
value. So that's something I'll keep an eye on, adding Mikal Bridges to the Houston Rockets in what's going to be a very, very tough Western Conference. I think they're a huge winner. The Toronto Raptors lost their pick to the Spurs. I think their pick became the 8th pick, and it was only protected up to the top 6. So that one goes over to San Antonio. And then for Atlanta, let's talk about Atlanta for a sec. Because now all the talk is on, are they going to trade Trae Young? Are they going to trade DeJounte Murray? Are they going to trade the pick? What would you be your thoughts? What would your thoughts be if you were the Atlanta Hawks and this was your situation?
Well, first, the first thing I would take a look at my books and say, what is this first pick going to do? So, I mean, that's like a, what, $12-13 million
Mm-hmm.
ad.
They've already got 163 million committed for next season.
Yeah, so
Assuming they pick up the team options on AJ Griffin, Jalen Johnson,
okay.
and
So
Garrett
that's
Matthews.
that's the first thing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I want to look and see what that does. Second thing that I want to do is figure out, what's the style and brand of basketball that they really want to play.
Well,
All
they
right.
try it, they do it for a year, then they fire a coach and try a different one.
Okay.
So your
Yeah.
guess is as good as mine, BJ.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So I look at this, I'm going, okay. So you're going to add the number 1 pick. So now it's highly unlikely that you're going to trade the number 1 pick unless you're Danny Ainge. And you better be right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, because that was an all-time finesse. When he had the number 1 pick, he traded it to Philly. Philly took Markelle Fultz. They knew the Lakers were going to take Lonzo Ball, and Jason Tatum was waiting right there in third.
Okay. If you do this, you better be right. Now,
And for some reason,
I
Landry
saw
Fields doesn't strike me quite as skilled as Danny Ainge when it comes to
all I'm saying is
negotiations.
I saw Danny Ainge then, and I saw Danny Ainge I just saw Danny at lunch, and Danny is working the room right now, so he sees something he likes. And now Danny, shout out to Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge is one of my all-time favorites. He's terrific in the draft. So Danny has something going on. Danny is here. He's not like, he didn't send his scouts. He didn't send the assistant GM. Danny is here and he's working the rooms. Okay. 2 days in a row, I've seen Danny 24/7 in the lobby. It's just working. He's working. Okay. So it's highly unlikely that they're going to trade the number 1 pick. So that means, to me, that they're going to have to make a commitment to how they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As is. Now, that doesn't mean they won't change. As is, it's highly unlikely that I think they draft a guard with the number 1 pick.
Yes, of course. They got Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. I feel like they've at some point got to decide whether it's Trae Young or DeJounte Murray they want to keep. Trae Young is 25, DeJounte Murray is 27. However, Trae Young is making about $20 million more than DeJounte every season.
So that leaves me to think that they're going to probably look for a 6'8" to 6 or 7 footer that probably will be, and based on what I'm seeing, some athletic wing or big who can play maybe the 4 and the 5. That's what I'm guessing that they'll
Alex,
probably do.
you are an
Something like
Atlanta
that.
Hawk.
Okay, all right. So now that if that is the case, you're going to have to build your team and your roster around the skill set that you think this player is going to be 2-3 years from today. Okay. So now with that, so I'm saying to myself, if you take a player like that, what is that going to do at the guard position? Because you have 2 max players at the guard position. You have DeAndre Hunter. You got some guys that are coming up. They got some really nice young players there. And you have, Bogdan, and you got all these players, Clint Capella. So that means they're going to have to be active. Now, who's going to stay, who's going to go, is anybody's guess. But I think they're going to have to probably change the way they want to play. And I think they're probably going to have to, at the very least, with those max players. I mean, you have 2 max players and you can't make the playoffs. That's a problem.
Yep.
Okay, so I think they're going to have to figure out their style and brand of basketball. And I don't know what that is.
Let me ask you this, because most players who come into the league as an number 1 pick, they go to a very bad team, and a team becomes their team. and you can see Orlando Magic is Paolo's team. The Spurs are Wemby's team. But coming into a Hawks team, this is Trae Young's team, or maybe it's DeJounte Murray's team. And if you're the number one pick in a draft, I don't know if many guys would be too excited to play as a role
Well, I
player for
don't know if
Trae
you can
Young.
say it's anyone's team because they haven't made the playoffs.
But you
Like,
know what I mean? Like
you
I'm
know,
talking more
well,
like
I
the
hear
locker
what you're
room dynamic
saying.
of this and how
I hear what you're
how
saying.
like when the Celtics had Kyrie Irving, but Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were still young players and they were taking over in the playoffs. That wasn't a great locker room dynamic for that side. So that's what intrigues me about trying to mix in high picks with very good players or all-star caliber players.
Well, again, I think it's been a couple years since they've made the playoffs or advanced in the playoffs. So I think they have a lot of decisions to make here. And I think the number one priority for this organization is to figure out what's their brand of basketball that they're going to want to play. Right? I've had the pleasure of knowing Coach Snyder for many years. He loves those skill guys. I mean, he played Bojan Bogdanovic
He could have been
at the
sixth man of
power.
the year.
Yeah, he played him at no, I'm talking about the one
Oh, you're
that
talking
plays
about
for the
Bojan
Bojan, right? He played Bojan
in Utah, yeah.
at Utah at the power forward position. So he clearly, in my opinion, loves shooting
Yep.
and he loves spacing and he
Yep.
loves skilled and all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay. And when I look at this roster, and I'm just look, I don't know. Maybe he's changed his philosophy. This doesn't fit his personality.
No.
Okay. So I'm looking very closely at who will emerge. And then that will show me what they're going to do. And then that will be the key on who's going to move and who's not going to. Okay. So, if there's a big question mark for me is what they're going to do with Clint Capella. Because whatever they do, they're going to have to take a look
He's
and
got
make the
one season left. He's an expiring contract on 22
yes, they're
million.
going to make and what they're going to have to do is they're either going to draft his replacement, which will be the number one pick in the draft, or they're going to have to make a bold move like we saw there with your Celtics. Okay. And you better be right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think the safer bet is the draft. And then now that buys you 4 or 5 years before people say, well, he can't play.
It gives you a job security. Get another contract and then you keep it moving.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, BJ, we've got two games happening tonight. Both series of which are tied 2-2. And the first one is the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks heading back to Madison
man.
Square
I knew you were
Garden.
going to ask about this.
A very injured New York Knicks team on their last legs. Do they live to fight another
Literally.
day and win this one and take a 3-2 series lead, or will they be heading back to Indiana
I'm going to
with a
tell you
chance for the
something.
Pacers to close out?
You said this was you talk about a must game.
Every game in the
Have,
playoffs is a must game.
well, yeah, but this one for the Knicks, I just think if they have any chance to win this series, they have to win this one. I don't think there's no way they can keep playing every other day and then go back to Indiana and then come back to no, I just don't think it's possible for them.
I think it's Pacers in 6 or Knicks in 7.
Yeah. I don't know. I know I'm not saying Knicks and 7. I just don't know how the Knicks are
Oh,
doing.
I said Knicks in 7 at the very start, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to stay what I said. The longer this series goes, it's going to favor the Pacers. So I'm just going to say the Pacers.
When I say Knicks in 7, I'm assuming that OG would be back for a game 7, but it's not looking like that right now.
Yeah, whether he's back or not, hamstrings are funny. Those are funny things. Those are funny. This isn't like, these guys have light switches and they turn them on. No, you're talking about the playoffs. The guy's going to come back full tilt and be like, okay, I'm back. No.
Well, he does have a lot of leverage now in his contract negotiation because the difference in this Knicks team with him playing and him not playing is night and day.
Yeah, but he's got to be available.
He does indeed.
Was he a hamstring? What, he had an elbow?
Yeah, he had an elbow. That was bad in the regular season.
And and he plays a physical brand of basketball. But you're right. When he's healthy, with him and Julius Randle there, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And Julius Randle's missed the entire playoffs, which is crazy to
Yeah,
think
and that's the
about.
thing about Mitchell Robinson too is out.
Yep.
So that's another
And Bogdanovich, who we
starter.
were just talking about.
Yeah, yep,
That's who
yep.
they traded for at the deadline.
Hmm.
But the other game, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets.
Oh,
Man, I wish you were here yesterday. I
I'm
was ready
going.
for an all-time Rudy Gobert slander run.
Yeah,
But
I'm going for. I'm just gonna say this. I think Denver's gonna win it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Denver. You're not gonna beat them. You're not gonna. I mean, you're not gonna beat them three times, right?
Well, they beat them
I think they
twice at
can win.
home when no one expected them to.
Yeah,
So
but listen, I think it's Denver has. I mean, Minnesota has to win tomorrow. They have to win tomorrow. They have to win tomorrow to have two chances to win one game.
Mhm.
I just think it's going to be impossible. I think they will be on high alert. They know what they have to do. They know their assignment. They know how they have to play, and now it's about execution. I don't think I don't think Minnesota right now knows how they have to play and what they need to do to beat this team. Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll see the adjustments that Chris Finch has made because Mike Malone made some really good adjustments in that last one.
Yes, he did.
Like Christian Brown played fantastic. I talked about this on yesterday's show. Some of the things that he had them doing, some of the screening stuff, getting better looks, and Aaron Gordon again.
Mhm.
If Aaron Gordon's hitting a couple threes in a game, you're not winning that game against Denver.
Why is Aaron Gordon should be on the Olympic team?
I know I said that when we
Yeah,
first spoke about it.
he
Hundred
should be on
percent,
the Olympic team.
100%. He's a winning player now.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to those two games tomorrow night. I really hope the Knicks pull it off because it's been such a good story this postseason, and for them to just go down by injuries, you never
Well,
want
I
to see
hope the
that.
Knicks play. I hope the Knicks win because there's just no way they can win Game 6.
But I just want the Knicks to win because I want to see the Knicks fans and the Celtics fans in the conference finals.
That'd be fun, but I just want to see the Knicks fans in Game 7.
Oh yeah,
I just want to see the Knicks fans in Game 7. So, all
yeah,
right, my friend. Well, I
it'd
got
be
to get up early
unbelievable.
tomorrow. While
Yeah,
you're
get some
just
rest, BJ. Get some rest. I
while
know it's
you're
late for
sitting
you.
around eating buns tomorrow morning for breakfast and drinking your coffee.
Wow.
I'll
Oh,
just
well,
be
first of all,
out.
I don't drink coffee, and second of all, I don't eat breakfast.
Is it? Oh.
Well, it's 6:30 in the morning right now, which should really be breakfast time for a normal functioning being. But I'm going to edit this podcast and then try and get a little bit of sleep if possible. But
Sounds good. Sounds
BJ,
good.
enjoy Chicago.
All right.
I would say enjoy the pizza, but the pizza's horrible, so don't enjoy that.
Oh, nothing like deep dish. Nothing like the deep dish.
Yeah, that's crazy because it's horrible.
Mhm.
But no, enjoy yourself, man. And we'll be back tomorrow after the Denver game in
Okay.
what should be an action-packed episode of the podcast. Make sure you guys subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever you get your podcast from. And most importantly, until next time, get buckets.